Hello and welcome to the Rankers podcast, where we literally rank anything and everything. Just two best friends ranking it up. My name is Nick.
And my name is Jacob. Let's rank them.
Let's rank them. I don't know why I emphasized a little bit on my name there. It's kind of weird. But how we doing, man? What's up?
Bro, it is such a good day to be a podcaster because the topic that we've got today, I'll save it and share my thoughts in a few minutes, but I'm just ecstatic about this episode. So excited about the guests we've got. Just the whole thing is just great. It's great to be here. How are you doing, Nick?
I'm doing good. Really just kind of out of this world right now with my NASA shirt on. Ha. I don't know. That was lame.
That was for the YouTubers.
Yeah, that was for the YouTubers.
All 6 of you.
Actually, I think the last couple have been 0, but that's okay. But
I thought you're actually was going to lead into a positive, but all good.
Well, here's the positive is that we are on YouTube, which is kind of cool in a sense because not all podcasters do that. But that's what I want to say. We just want to start off, guys, with saying, first off, we want to thank you, Ranker fam, for being with us, sticking with us through over a year now that we've been doing this podcast. It's been amazing. We've had a lot of fun, a lot of interactions. We've done things where we obviously bring people in all the time. We have a guest today who we're excited about that we've had in the past. And so we've continued to do things like that. We've had listeners pick. So just interacting with our community in fun ways has been an awesome time. And so that leads me to say that we're on YouTube, we're on Instagram. Obviously you probably are listening to us on whether that's Apple Podcasts or Spotify. I do want to say that we're very thankful to a recent rating that we got on Apple Podcasts from Aftershock 14. Just gave us 5 stars and said some really awesome things about you and I, and that the podcast is fun and diverse. And that was just a really cool thing to see. So thank you for that, Aftershock 14.
Yes. And if you want a shout out on the pod, all you got to do is leave us a review.
All you got to do is leave us a review.
Actually, there's no or. Yeah, leave the review. We'll give you a shout out. We will love you forever. But thank you.
Yeah. We're up to
Aftershock.
17 ratings now, which is kind of cool.
Yeah, we're getting there, moving along.
Dude, how many total episodes do we have? 30, 40?
30 something, 38, 39 or something like that.
Yep. Yeah. This might be our 40th, actually.
Yeah. But speaking of episodes, if you clicked on the pod today, it is because you are one of 2 people. You are either just a dedicated fan, like our guest that we have on today, who we will introduce here in just a second, or you are a dedicated Friends fan, because this week we are ranking the Friends Thanksgiving episodes, one of the most iconic things in sitcom TV show history. And I am so excited about this episode. But before I get into my thoughts, let me introduce our guest who has been on the pod before, Josiah Renz, brother.
Ladies and gentlemen, Josiah Renz. Give him
the pizza man himself.
The pizza man is back. Hey, Josiah, we want real quick. We have some unfinished business. Before you even say hello, I'm getting right into it from the pizza episode. Cold pizza or no?
Yes, absolutely. No
question. Okay.
Doesn't matter what form. He just wants it, man.
Well, there's some pizzas on that list I wouldn't eat cold.
Man.
Most pizzas I will eat cold, but
Josiah, what's up, dude?
Yeah, what's up? So happy to be back. I love this podcast, and I
love you.
Definitely listened to every single episode you guys have released. So I'm sure everybody says that.
They don't. They really don't.
You can go on I listened to it on Spotify. You can go listen, and it says played.
Yes,
on every single episode.
Wow.
So,
thank you, brother.
See that? So, or it might say like 1 minute remaining, because usually when I hear the music, I'm like, all right, this is over.
Dang, our song is a minute long, bro. We need to fix that.
It just says 1 minute remaining, regardless of if it's 10 seconds.
Okay, I got you.
It fades in. It fades in. It's all good.
But
it's all good.
It's all good. So.
Dude, that's amazing. That's amazing.
I'm
gonna stop
follow
talking.
you on all the socials, so I don't need to hear that spiel.
You need to hear it. So, all right, let me kind of just give a little background. So, I had a conversation with Josiah a few months back, and I think Nick had a similar conversation probably when we started the podcast, because Nick has known Josiah longer than I have, obviously. But Josiah was like, look, guys, if you would have me as a guest, I would be honored, but I only want to do one of two things. I either want to be on a pizza pod or a Friends pod. And lo and behold, he's been on both. And so today we are ranking the Friends Thanksgiving episodes. Josiah, tell us about your relationship with this amazing TV show.
So the first time I ever heard of Friends, it was actually in Sunday school at church.
Heck
and
yeah.
I grew
Jesus
up,
lives.
I know, right? I grew up in a pretty conservative Christian family. And so I didn't watch a whole lot of TV growing up at all. And in Sunday school, I was at a Sunday school, and I think I was 13, and somebody mentioned the TV show Friends, and I said, "What's that?" And they looked at me like I was stupid because I'd never even heard of it.
Yeah.
And I like went home and I asked my mom, and I said, "Oh, what's this TV show Friends?" And she's like, "Oh, this is one of my favorite TV shows." she actually didn't say that, which I'm surprised at now. But
props to the conservative mom.
it was one of my mom's favorite shows as well. So she would let me watch some episodes if they ever showed up, and then because I think by that point the show was in its like last season.
Okay.
Like when I first heard about it. So I actually didn't ever watch any of it on TV. But I know my mom did. And I think a couple of years later, I found one of the DVD sets in our house, and it was season 3.
Yeah.
So I've watched season 3 of Friends way more than the rest of the show.
That's funny.
But
nice.
I've definitely watched Friends a good many times since then. For some reason, it's just the one show that I always felt like I could fall back on. Like, if I'm like, I don't know what to watch, I'll just watch Friends again. That's just kind of what I've always done, and I've watched it more times than I can count.
I was about to ask you that. Would you be able to count how many times you've watched it?
No, and I mean, like, I know I've mentioned this to Jacob already, but like, there was a time in college. It was probably the stupidest thing not the stupidest thing I did.
Oh, this is insane. I know what you're about to say.
But like senior year, Thanksgiving break. So the week our school had a break after Thanksgiving break before finals. You had like 1 week of regular classes and finals. And in that week, in between leading up to finals, I watched all 10 seasons of Friends.
Wow.
Which breaks down to about 8 hours, 45 minutes a day or something like that.
That's impressive.
And if you look in the background, YouTubers, you'll see that Josiah is currently in an institution. And so I'm just kidding. That's insane, dude. I'm a Friends fan, but I've never done that before.
Yeah. So, and honestly, it was just because, when I was in college, most of my friends were like, yeah, we got to study. And I was like, well, I don't know what to do. So I just went back to my room, and I think like 5 or 6 days in, I was like, well, I've got this far. I may as well just keep going.
That's because Josiah didn't have to study because he was such a genius in school. This man was like my finance tutor. I was trying to get him to do stuff for me. He was like, nah, like that.
I helped you with that.
You did.
I was all graduated.
Yeah.
I did your homework on my couch.
Okay, we can move on now. 8.5 hours, though. That's a long time. That's about half the amount of time I used to play Fortnite in one day. But
yeah, and when that time that I watched it, it wasn't like I sat on the couch and like played on my phone while it played in the background. It was like, no, I sat there and watched it.
Yeah,
like
that's
that
amazing.
So.
Well, if that doesn't qualify you for this podcast, I don't know what would.
Absolutely.
But Jacob, what is your relationship with Friends?
Yeah, so there's no way I can get through this episode without spoiling another list that we will do one day. It's just, a lot of people will forget, I'm sure, but Friends, it's not even close, is my favorite TV show of all time. Not to get like super weird here, but I will say that there was a time in my life that was really, really difficult, and genuinely Friends was a constant for me. I was younger, and I knew it, like, I'm a follower of Jesus, and I knew that God was always with me, all that kind of stuff. But as far as like something that was right in front of me, there was a lot of stuff going on in my life that was really difficult, and I, like, for some reason, latched myself onto this show, watched it over and over again. It was like therapy almost, which is it's maybe strange for some people, but everybody's got something like that. Mine just happened to be. So now when I go back and watch it, it's not only because I love the show and I love the characters, I love the writing, everything about it, but there's also that I go back to. It's like, it's almost emotional for me when I watch it. And I'm the kind of person, when I get done with season 10, the final episode, I have to watch the pilot right after, or I will go crazy, because I'm like, it's over and it ends. And I'm like, no, it can't be over. And I go back. I have it's partially an obsession. I'll just go ahead and tell you, you can ask my wife. I love this show. I watch it all the way through a couple times a year. It's just on recap for me. And Chandler Bing, Matthew Perry, is maybe my favorite fictional character of all time. He's just an incredible Matthew Perry is a comedic genius. I actually just bought his memoir. I started reading it the other day. Love that guy, love that character. But Friends is my all-time favorite show, not even close. And I'm so stoked to talk about these iconic episodes.
Wow, that is also credible. I'm excited just to sit back and listen a little bit, because Ranker fam, if we haven't said this already, I am not going to be doing a list. I personally don't have a relationship with Friends, and I've only watched episodes here and there. So you can slander me, especially since you clicked on this episode wanting to listen to some Friends. You're not going to hear it from me today. But if we haven't put Jacob and Josiah in front of you to talk about Friends with hearing what you guys just had to say with your relationship, I don't even know. But you guys are about to kill it. I'm excited.
Yeah, and it's the Thanksgiving season, and so this is the month of Thanksgiving, and we thought it was really appropriate. And so what we're gonna do is we're gonna rank all 10. So it's essentially a top 10, but there are 10 seasons, and there's one Thanksgiving episode,
which happens to be perfect.
Happens to be perfect. So if we're ready to get this thing going, we always start with our guest.
Let's get it.
If you want to, what we'll do, Josiah, I meant to say this off mic, but we'll just kind of just say the episode and then just kind of give like a 10-second just overview. You don't have to give like a full synopsis, because obviously we're going to repeat episodes because we're ranking the same number. So just kind of give a little spiel of what it is, and then we'll get it going. So go for it. Number 10.
Okay. I will say, I know that a lot of times you guys explain how you rate the categories. This was actually significantly harder for me to do than the pizza episodes, because like when it comes to pizza, I was like, oh yeah, I'm gonna choose that one obviously over this. But because I love Friends as a whole, it's like, how do I pick?
I wanted them all to be number one.
Like, it's like there were some legitimate ones where I was like, I put it at number one, and then I put another one, and I was like, we'll just put them equal for now, and I'll come back. And then I came back, and it was like, I don't know what I'm gonna do. But it was actually difficult. But a lot of what it came down to for me is, one, when I get to it, do I feel a need to be glued to the screen throughout? Was like another one. And the other major thing is, everybody has favorite characters, and for me, I like the storylines of some characters more than others. And so my favorites tend to be more on the characters that I like more. So even though there's 6 of them, it's not every episode isn't about everyone. It's usually targeted on 1 or 2 of the 6. So
good point.
But that being said, I'll get started. My number 10 is going to be the one with the list.
Okay, cool. That's my number 10 too. I figured we would have that.
Shocked if it wasn't.
Yeah. We can get this one out of the way, because I'm pretty positive that they didn't know that they were going to have a Thanksgiving episode every season at this point.
It's definitely possible. So
yeah.
But yeah, short synopsis. Ross and Rachel kiss and make up after the whole first season fiasco, and it's essentially them just creating a list of Rachel's pros and cons. And the only Thanksgiving-esque part of it is Monica's looking for a job, and she gets a job making mocklet for Thanksgiving marketing. And but yeah, I like on this one, it was by far the one where I was just like, I could get to this one and I could skip it, like if I wanted to. I don't really watch it, and that's not because I don't like the Friends episode, but honestly, I am not a huge Ross and Rachel guy, just in general.
Whoa.
I know. Hot
take.
Right off. Whoa. Like, Ross and Rachel is not my favorite relationship in Friends by far. And so to me, I was just like, the whole episode is about them, and they're just arguing the whole time. So it's not my favorite.
Yeah, I won't spend a lot of time. I'll kind of agree. I think that this is not only the bottom of the Thanksgiving episodes, but this episode in general isn't one that's super memorable for me. It's one of those, and you get this with all sitcoms because sitcom writing is like this, and you just have to take it for what it is. But this is one of the episodes where I just go like, okay, there's easily a bunch of ways that you could fix this little fight between Ross and Rachel, but they won't do it because of the writing. And it's just one of those things that's kind of frustrating. Yeah. It's like, oh, this is such a misunderstanding. And if he would have just told her, if he would have done this, it's hard. It's hard to get through. Honestly, my favorite part about it is when Chandler is on the phone with the printer operator and they start talking about Star Trek in the background or whatever. It's such a little part of the episode, but I just love it. And because Chandler gets a laptop for the first time and it's so dated, it's hilarious. And anyway, but yeah, I agree
all about it. And he's like, what are you going to do with it?
Games and stuff. Yeah, we can go ahead and move on to number 9. The one with the list, that's season 2.
Yes.
And not a great one. So I figured we'd both have that at number 10. So go ahead and give us your number 9, Josiah.
Wait, let me ask real quick. So were you guys saying that they were trying to figure out if Thanksgiving was going to be a consistent one? So like, why was this? You guys were obviously unanimous in saying that this was the worst episode. So I was just wondering, like, what you mentioned, like, did they not know that they were going to make this a regular thing? Is that what you meant?
I don't have any proof of that, but my theory is that because Thanksgiving is literally barely mentioned, like in passing in the dialogue of this episode,
gotcha. Yeah.
I think that the first season Thanksgiving episode was just a fluke thing, and they didn't realize that they were going to keep recurring because maybe they did. Like I said, I have no proof, but there's so little mention of Thanksgiving actually being in this episode, and it clearly stands apart from the other 9 Thanksgiving episodes.
Yeah, well, because I was wondering, why, or how many episodes that you guys were gonna have as the same, and then that one was very clear to you guys.
Yeah,
it's very forgettable as far as Thanksgiving. So.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I think from here on, the rest could be hit or miss.
Oh yeah, okay. I'm ready. I'm excited.
All right, Josiah, hit us with number 9.
For me, this one was like easy, but also really hard. And part of it is, so number 9 for me is the one with Rachel's other sister, season 9.
Okay.
And the reason that's hard is because as the show progresses, you generally get more and more attached to the characters and the show itself. So it's hard for you to like later episodes less than previous episodes, at least for me. So like, as I went through them, I was like, oh, but that one's a great one, but that one's a great one, but that one's a great one. But I hate Rachel's sisters, both of them. Like, they're just the most obnoxious people in the world, and that really turned me off on this episode. But yeah, essentially this one episode is Rachel's other sister, the one that doesn't show up much in the show, comes over for dinner, and Chandler breaks all the fancy china, and that's the best part of the episode. Honestly, is the whole Chandler and Monica thing about the fancy china is the only thing I like about that episode. So
these may not have been as good as the pretty pink ones that I picked out. favorite line of the episode. I think that makes a lot of sense. If you don't like Amy, Rachel's sister, she's very prominent in this episode. Like, she's very out front. So I totally get if you don't like that storyline, it takes up the bulk of the episode. So.
And one of the other things I wasn't a huge fan of is, like, a lot of the episode talks about who's going to get the baby.
Okay.
If people die, and a lot of it is just not very, like, Ross and Rachel clearly had conversations, if this person dies, if this person dies, if this person dies. And who does that? Who talks about, like, if the 4th person dies along the way, who gets the 5th? Like, who's the 5th person?
Go after the next level.
And so that was just very, like, specific, and it was just like, it's unnecessary. So
sure.
But yeah,
I get it.
Number 9.
Solid. All right, I'm gonna keep going, and yeah, Nick, just feel free to chime in whenever. Just cut us off whenever you want.
No worries.
My number 9 is the one with Chandler in the box, season 4.
Okay.
So like I said, Chandler's my favorite character, and you would think that this, why would this be so low? He's kind of the prominent thing. I'll get this out of the way. I don't like it when Chandler and Joey fight. I'm not a fan. It's like in Harry Potter, The Goblet of Fire, when Ron and Harry fight for half of the movie. It's brutal. I can't stand it. Now, I will say it makes their reunion, when they make up and they do the famous hug, Chandler and Joey do the famous hug that they do. That's awesome. I love that. I get that you need the fights in order to make that happen. But I really, really don't like the idea of Chandler making out with Joey's girlfriend, and then him buying all the stuff to try to get it back. Basically, the synopsis is Joey's dating this girl that Chandler's in love with, and Joey doesn't know, and basically Chandler and the girl, they kiss, and he has to tell Joey, and to explain the box situation, I'd have to explain another episode, but if you're listening, you've watched it, you know what I'm talking about. But here's the thing, that part is fine. I don't love it, but the other storylines do not help this episode, in my opinion, because you have another Ross and Rachel fight, which Ross just makes me so mad because of how much of a baby he is in this episode. And then you have Monica dating Richard's son, which is such a weird thing. And then I'll tell you my least favorite part of the episode. The actor who plays Richard's son is just terrible. And look, I get it's a sitcom and guest stars usually aren't, the greatest of actors sometimes when you have like a small role, but this guy takes me out of the episode every single time. I don't like the actor. He's just terrible. And Monica wears the eye patch, and it's just a bad look. It's just weird. Don't love the episode. And Chandler, still, the best part of the episode, Chandler still is hilarious when you don't even see him or hear him talk. He somehow is funny in a box silent still. He does it. It's great. You guys can't tell, but I'm mooning you right now or something. It's there's so many good parts, but the episode as a whole, I don't love it. So that's why it comes in at number 9 for me.
Just so you know, and I'm sure you're not going to do this as an episode, but Chandler is also my favorite character out of the 6. So just so you know. Yes. Did we just become best friends? Yep. All right.
That's funny because it's called Friends.
Number 8, Josiah, you want to go ahead and keep going?
Number 8. Hang on. I didn't do this. Okay. Number 8 for me is season 1, the one where Underdog gets away. This is, I guess, the first Thanksgiving episode, and to use your guys' terminology, it's not super memorable as far as most goes. And honestly, it's just a ton of fighting throughout. It's just a lot of yelling, a lot of screaming.
Literally,
you've got the whole thing with Ross trying to speak to his kid that's not born yet, and that's kind of entertaining, but it's basically just a lot of fighting throughout. And like even when they're all fighting at the end and all the smoke, and Chandler just goes, "Now this seems like Thanksgiving," That's like the funniest thing of the whole thing. And it's like there's just not a whole lot of resolve. Except for like basically in the end credits with Chandler. So that's kind of the idea behind it. Yes, it's still a very good Thanksgiving episode, but it's just like, wow, I don't want to sit here and listen to just people screaming at each other for 22 minutes. So
yeah, there is that. That's a really good point. The majority of the episode is that. And so you get a good kind of redemption thing at the end, but you have to sort of sit through everything goes wrong for everybody. And then the Underdog thing is kind of random and weird. I could totally see how that, but I get that pick for sure. Season 1, though, it is the OG.
Yeah.
All right, I'm going to flip the script here, and I'm going to go with my number 8 is the last Thanksgiving episode of the show, and it is season 10, the one with the late Thanksgiving.
Not sure if you still do this, but that's my number 7.
Okay, cool.
My next one. So
that's fine. So you can just kind of jump into it right after. So this episode is good, but here's why it's lower on my list. I thought that the final Thanksgiving episode of the show would be better. It's kind of frustrating that they're not all together. And the best part of the episode for me is the hallway stuff when Ross, Phoebe, Rachel, and Joey try to figure out how to, what excuse works best. I love when Joey rips the shirt pocket off of Ross, and then they do the rock, paper, scissors thing, as you were just alluding to, Josiah, with the fire and the water balloon and everything. And then the head stuff is really funny when they put their heads through the door. But everything else it doesn't make any sense why Joey and Ross would choose a hockey game over. It's clearly their last Thanksgiving in that apartment. Like they know that by now and stuff. And it's kind of weird. And all the storylines, the fact that they're late, again, it's more fighting, and they're not even together. And mainly, like I said, it's low on my list because I thought that the final Thanksgiving episode of the entire show would be a little bit better. It's still a funny episode. I like it. I enjoy it. Just lower down for me. What are your thoughts, Josiah?
A lot of the exact same points. Like the hallway scene is basically the funniest thing.
Yeah.
Even the conversations through the door, like
Yeah.
where they're talking about the vein the whole time, and they're like, that's hilarious. Also, I don't know if you've seen a lot of bloopers, but a lot of the funniest bloopers
Dude.
I've seen have come from the hallway scene, and that's kind of why I'm like, it's still a great episode. But
Yeah.
it's like, yes, you would expect it, but I didn't realize how not memorable it was for a final Thanksgiving episode until I put all the Thanksgiving episodes in a
Right.
row.
Same.
And then I was like, oh shoot, yeah, they really didn't do a whole lot for the last season, which is just unfortunate because you would hope that they would, like, they did end the show really well. I still think this is one of the best endings that a show has done. Like after 10 seasons, they ended the show really well.
For sure.
And I think they focused more on the ending, which I'm okay with, than they did the Thanksgiving episode. But yeah, a lot of the same reasons. A lot of fighting. There's always resolve at the end of their episodes that have a lot of fighting, but it's just it's not that great comparatively.
Speaking of fighting in this episode, why were Ross and Joey late to dinner? Rangers game, Knicks game, Mets game, or Yankees game?
It was a Rangers game.
They give you sports. Yeah, it's a Rangers game because he's got the foam finger. It says Go Rangers on it.
Yeah, for the love of God, man, take it off. Yeah, the hallway part of that episode is really, really good.
Oh, yeah.
But the rest of the stuff is, and then Chandler making the cranberries is funny, but the cranberry sauce.
Enough the cranberries, a monkey could have made them.
So good, so good. Nick
Dang.
is like, what are you guys doing?
I'm looking at some like trivia questions for Thanksgiving
nice.
episodes.
I hope they're better than the Star Wars ones.
Here we go. Wait, let me ask one more.
Brutal.
Monica and Chandler receive a call that a pregnant woman from which state has chosen them
Ohio.
as adoptive parents. All right, yeah, so they might be worse than
No,
Star Wars.
No, we've seen
watched
this show
it.
way too many
Just
times.
I will start laughing preemptively at a scene that I know is next.
Right.
Because like if I'm hearing it in the background, like in the other room, I'll just start laughing because I know it's next out loud.
Right.
But I have a random question for you, Jacob.
Okay.
How many times did you watch these episodes before in preparation for this? Or did you watch
zero?
them all?
I didn't. I know I can almost quote the entire episode, but I've seen it. I don't mean to. That sounded super arrogant.
No.
That's not what I meant.
But I
I'm
know
sorry.
what you mean.
I
Like,
didn't have to watch for prep. I can remember all the threads and everything. I knew my number 1 and my number 10 when I was like,
When you
before
were
we even
setting
started
up.
this
Yeah, that
podcast.
was
I mean, I knew what my favorite was, and I'm in the middle. I rotate through sitcoms that I watch, and I recently finished Friends a couple months ago, so I didn't
that
go back
helps.
and watch them. Yeah.
Wow.
But yeah, none,
So,
I guess.
yeah.
Okay,
All right, that was my number 7. So
Okay, my number 7 you just mentioned was your number 8. It's the one where underdog gets away. So
Yeah.
season 1. And I agree with a lot of what you said, but the thing I have to push back on, which is why it's higher on my list, is because, well, number 1, it's OG. It's the very first Thanksgiving
for sure.
episode. One of my favorite things about season 1 is how low the quality is, and the lighting,
Yes,
and the show looks so much
absolutely.
different. It's so vintage to me. I love it. Everything's darker. Everything is grainier. But one of the things that I love about this episode, the reason it's a little bit higher for me, is because I love the fact that this is Chandler's first, like, he actually loves this Thanksgiving. And so if you've watched the show, you obviously know that Chandler's parents told him they were getting divorced on Thanksgiving, and so he hates the holiday. He doesn't eat Thanksgiving food. And the fact that everybody's Thanksgiving plans get canceled and they all end up having Thanksgiving together kind of by circumstance, it wasn't the plan. Chandler is the one who makes the speech basically before they eat, and it's just really, really fitting because he's been through it. Like, he had a really difficult childhood, and for him to come back and go, I'm sorry that your plans were messed up, but I'm genuinely glad that they were, because now we're all together. And then the dark cheese, light cheese thing is just a really funny way to end it. And
speaking of that moment, fill in the blank. Chandler tells the group he's happy all their Thanksgiving sucked. Ross wishes them a blank Christmas.
oh gosh, is it a
I know the crappy New Year.
Yeah, he says in a blank Christmas and a crappy New Year.
Or
Terrible,
Rachel says
lousy.
is it lousy? I think it's lousy.
Yeah. Well, he mentioned it as one of them. So yeah.
I can see him.
Yeah,
doing
no,
it with his glass. I know
With
exactly
his
what
glass.
he's wearing too. So
And a crappy new year. Yeah.
yeah. I won't spend too much time. You've already mentioned that one, but it's really Chandler for me is kind of what does it. How he kind of sits idly by, and then he's the one who kind of brings them together when at the start of the episode he's completely against the holiday altogether. So I just think it was good writing, and it was really well done. So that's my number 7. Yeah. So number 6.
On to 6. All right, number 6 for me is season 5, the one with the Thanksgiving flashbacks.
That's my number 6 as well.
Hey.
We have it was funny. Our 6 and then our 7s and 8s were just switched. So, but yeah. So the one with the flashbacks, a lot of it is just basically flashing back to, I believe, what was their worst Thanksgivings memories that they could think of. Is kind of just the idea behind it, and they're all trying to figure out which one was Monica's, and it comes down to one where it's Chandler just said some hurtful things when they're in high school. But funny moments from this, the turkey on the head is just so funny to me.
Yeah, really
both
iconic.
in the flashback and at the end. It's like a really redeeming moment, and it's not like there isn't fighting in this episode, but there is conflict, and it's immediately resolved.
Yeah,
like right at the end, it's like Chandler realizes what Monica did to him that he didn't know. Immediately feels point, and Monica immediately goes to resolve the situation by using Chandler's way of communicating, which is comedy.
Right.
And that is just something that I really love about this episode. So I really like this episode. There's not a whole lot that goes on because it's a lot of flashbacks. So as like character development doesn't really exist, but like those moments like really are why I like this episode.
Yeah, I'm a fan of this episode. I'll say why it's not higher up really quick, and then I'll get into the good stuff. Mainly, I'm not the biggest fan of flashback episodes. That's just me. It kind of takes me out.
I don't like Monica either, so
kind of takes me out a little. Yeah, it takes me out a little bit. But what I do love about the flashback scenes in this episode is Chandler and Ross's haircuts and their suits are hilarious. And when they walk into the house,
both
times,
stories, yes,
they say their opening lines, and then they both do like the sleeve roll up thing at the same time. And the first year they have Chandler has like the flock of seagulls haircut, but then the next year when they show up, they're like, yeah, we look so ridiculous last year. That's stupid, but they still look absolutely stupid.
That's so good.
It's really good. The pinky toe thing is funny. And it's a good story. It's a good idea. I think the episode is a blast, but I'm just not a huge fan of flashback stuff, and so that's why it's lower on my list. But
that's
good number 6.
Factor, number 5.
Number 5, top 5. Here we go. We're rolling.
All right, number 5 for me is season 3, the one with the football.
That is also my number 5.
Dang.
Dude, what? I thought it was going to be more different than this.
Which is crazy because our number 9s are both completely higher on the other person's list. So,
right. Sorry, Ranker fam. Not as interesting. Go ahead, Josiah. Go ahead.
I think it might end up being interesting. But the one with the football, it's just so iconic. Like if you tell somebody like Friends Thanksgiving, they go, oh, the one with the football. Like that's the one that most people remember immediately if they think of Friends and Thanksgiving. So why for me it's a little bit lower than closer to like top 2 or 3, because like this is a really iconic Thanksgiving episode, is mostly because of the Monica Ross like arguments, and it's just so childish. So a lot of their arguments tend to be really childish, but it's just like super petty, and it just goes on and on throughout the whole thing. Whereas like the Chandler Joey argument over the girl, that's just hilarious. Like that whole fight over the girl is just the funniest thing. Whereas
the Dutch live somewhere in the Netherlands, right? Yeah, that's brutal. That's really brutal.
Yeah, so but yeah, so that's why I have it there. I really love just the football scene, the relationships they have, everybody's picking on Rachel, and she comes out to be the hero essentially at the end. But yeah, like it's just really iconic as a Thanksgiving episode. But
I will say just a quick comment. All of the outfits that they wear in that episode are all currently in style right now. Just like the next time you go and watch that episode,
That's true.
like Rachel's got like the snapback on, and she's got the long sleeve under the short sleeve and the sweatpants. Like
what years did Friends air again?
94 to 2004.
94 to 04. Yeah. So this would have been 96, 97, I think.
Sounds about right.
But like Phoebe's literally wearing a long t-shirt and leggings. Like she's in like the literal. But just a couple things for me. I enjoy the sibling rivalry thing. I think it's pretty funny. It is definitely childish, but I love at the very beginning when they're so serious when they say that they're not allowed to play football anymore. And like Ross's, like David Schwimmer's acting when he sees the Geller Cup, when he finds out that Monica still has it. And he's like, the Geller Cup. And it's really, really funny. And the picking team thing is pretty funny.
Yeah.
My favorite part of the episode is when they do the girls versus guys thing towards the end, and they have the montage and everything, and it's really great. And it's really iconic. It's an off-site episode, so they're not in the apartment, they're not in the coffee shop, they're in this this park, and it's kind of cool because you can see people like popping out of the windows watching their game and stuff. And then cool. It's a fun episode. I have a little like kind of I falter some with season 3 just because that's when Matthew Perry was really like bad with his addiction and stuff, and you can see it. And like he's gone on to say that he doesn't remember filming most of season 2 and season 3, which is really really sad, obviously. But he's still, I've just got to give it to the guy. He's still so funny. Like he's clearly out of it, because his addiction and stuff, but his comedic timing is all still the same and hilarious. And he has some really, really great moments where he's like, Joey's like, you're good with numbers and stuff. And Chandler's like, math? You're giving me math? And there's some really great moments. And so no surprise. I thought it'd be a little higher for you since you said you had seen season 3 so many times, but that's a good spot for it.
I mean, that's probably why it's most iconic for me. But I mean, I've watched the whole show as an entirety. I like some of these other ones a little bit better.
Oh, so, okay. Well, I'm ready. I'm ready to hear it.
Number 4?
Yeah, let's do it.
I believe. All right. So number 4 for me is season 6, the one where Ross got high.
Okay. This is not the same. Good.
Yes. So good. Okay. So short thing. Joey, Monica and Ross's parents are coming over. They don't know that Chandler and Monica are dating, or let alone living together. So there's that whole hidden secrecy thing. Joey and Ross are trying to go over to hang out with Janine's hot dancer friends. And this is the point in my list where it was like hard for me to read. If I'm being honest.
Agree.
But
I agree.
It was really hard. But this is the one that's probably most iconic, with the truffle, with the English truffle that Rachel makes for
the trifle.
Trifle.
Yeah.
Truffle, something. Probably not, but I wrote down truffle and it could have been autocorrect.
I think truffle is a chocolate, is like a
oh no, most likely.
Yeah, it is.
So, but yeah,
we'll
English
cut it out.
trifle.
Don't worry.
No, don't cut it out. English trifle, but the recipe gets stuck together, and that's just so funny.
Yes.
Because like Monica puts so much faith, and Rachel's like, I'm going to mess this up, but confidently goes through it anyway. And I think this is like one of the most redeeming parts where Monica says like, no, like I have complete faith. And this is, 6 seasons in.
Right.
And I think this one is fun. Yes, again, Thanksgiving without fighting. Crazy. I know. Never happens. But like that whole like yelling, fighting thing at the end where they're just spitting out things where
so good.
Like all the things that nobody knew about somebody else
in
front of her parents. And then I think my favorite part of this entire episode is like that fighting ends with Joey yelling, I want to go. And then Monica and Ross's mom just stands up and answers every question perfectly, like from perfect memory. And it's like, I don't even remember that, but like just like responds to everything. And then that resolution throughout the end.
I'm sorry, but I think Jacques Cousteau is dead.
Yeah. And again, right at the end, Matthew Perry, I'll talk to them.
Yeah.
Like, at the very end. It's just so good. So that's my number 4.
Love it. I'm going to save my thoughts It's gonna come up a little later. I love.
I
that
have
episode.
a generic Friends question.
Mhm.
So, as somebody who I've seen The Office, I haven't seen much of Friends, like I've said, but I know that The Office got off to like not the best start. A lot of people talk about how bad season 1 is. For somebody who, would be looking to get into watching Friends, does it have that sort of thing, or is it like it's just good from the start?
Yeah, I would agree. I think the only thing sorry, that didn't make any sense. I would say it's good from the start, but I think the only thing that would hold people back is it was 1994. It's
Mhm.
season 1 is pretty dated like as you watch it, but you have to watch season 1 to appreciate, like, just to be honest with you, you can start The Office in you could really start in season 2 though. You could start and it's kind of like the beginning of the show in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
I don't think you can do that with Friends. There's a lot of storylines, particularly Ross and Rachel, that go
Yes.
through the whole entire show that you would miss if you didn't watch season Friends. The only thing, like I said, I think would hold some people back would be the dated part of it. But I don't know, Josiah, what do you think?
No, I completely agree. I don't think you have. I'm sorry. I think that like you can watch it from the beginning and it's not like awkward or cringy or things like that. I mean,
Gotcha.
it's a pilot
Yeah.
season, so naturally all of those shows have like not as good writing or not as
Sure.
good like editing, and it's
Right, they
like he says,
grow.
it's vintage
Yeah.
and grainy, and you can clearly tell from season 1 to season 2.
Yeah.
Right.
But like a lot of like one of the most iconic lines in Friends comes from the first episode. And that's with Matthew Perry going, and I just won $1 million. Like,
yeah.
like that is just very iconic
Gotcha, yeah.
from the show that, and you get a lot of those in the first season, like a lot of the funniest moments. So yeah, I think
Nice.
like you really want to watch season 1. So,
Okay.
especially because season 1 to season 2 ends on a huge cliffhanger.
Really great transition.
So like it's a really good transition to go from 1 to 2.
All right.
And Friends is not only one of the most bingeable shows, but like it's one of the most well put together chronological watches that you'll ever see in a show. Like
I appreciate that.
storylines go through so well.
Yeah.
And shows like The Office and Parks and Rec and other really good shows, they do that
They
well
do and they don't. Yeah.
as well.
Yeah.
But Friends was really the pioneer in
Yeah.
my opinion of that. So
Absolutely.
Can I say something about Friends that might be a hot take?
ooh.
Sure.
I love the storylines in Friends as general, but they're very unrealistic sometimes. The storylines as a whole from season 1 to 10. Like if you take Ross as a character and the things that happened to him from seasons 1 through 10 as a whole, like married a lesbian, falls in love with Rachel, then gets Rachel pregnant, doesn't marry Rachel, like those things that happen is just like,
and they remain best friends all throughout. Right.
Like, and so some of those things where it's just like, what is going on here with some of these? And I've heard some people say that like, oh man, the storylines are messed up. And I was like, yes, some of those storylines from season 1 to 10 are a little wonky, but it's more the relationships that build throughout it that make the show great. So
Gotcha.
Platonic relationships don't work like that in real life.
Yeah,
a lot of the
Yeah.
times they just don't. But the best part of the show, which is the fact that I saw one little thing that said Friends is simply just a show about 6 people who are messed up and accept each other. And that's what the best part of the show is that
for sure.
all the stuff they go through, all the mistakes they make, it's still the 6 of them, and they just kind of they team up and they stay together, and that's what's the best part of the show. But yeah, I would absolutely agree. I mean, it's a sitcom.
Well, thank you guys for the Friends overview. We can get back to the Thanksgiving episodes, and I believe we're on to Jacob.
Jacob's number 4.
So my number 4 is season 7, the one where Chandler doesn't like dogs. And so I'll say off the top that the concept of this episode is really incredible. Season 7 Chandler, and this I'm getting into deep meta stuff of how I feel.
Wait, it involves dogs in this episode?
It does.
It's probably Josiah's number 1.
I'll go ahead and say season 7 Chandler is not my favorite Chandler. I think he is still incredible, but there's a couple things that he seems very in the background in a lot of season 7 for whatever reason. And I won't get into that, but this episode in particular, I love the concept of Chandler not liking dogs, but for me, Matt LeBlanc chills in the background of this episode but every single line he has in this episode is comedic
No.
gold. Every single line. He absolutely steals it for me. He doesn't have a storyline really in the whole show. He just kind of sits and he taps into the other. But like when Chandler tries to tell everybody that he doesn't like dogs and Joey's like, don't do it. He like his little thing. And then when Rachel goes to Joey for advice and he talks about the cow's opinion, the moo point thing, like Matt LeBlanc is absolute gold in that episode. And all he does is just kind of chime in every once in a while. And he's like, and when they get done with the counting the states thing in 6 minutes and they go, Joey, how many did you get? He goes, 56. It's so good. Every single line. He's just so innocent and just chilling in that episode. That's my favorite part about it. That's why it's so high for me. Matt LeBlanc is incredible. Steals the show. I can't remember the specific state he says. I think it might be like gosh, I can't remember. I won't take the time, but where he accuses Ross of making up a state or something when it's an actual
Utah.
real. I can't remember. Yeah, he's like, Ross, you can't just make stuff up.
You can't just make stuff up.
That's pretty funny.
But it's really, really good. And then when Ross finally gets it, but he doesn't get it at the very end when he's like, he's like, you got Nevada twice, and Ross is like, I know. I have people do that game all the time. I'll try to see. I did it once. I was terrible at it. Basically the game is you have to name
47.
as many states in 6 minutes as you can, and it's actually a lot harder than people think. My wife was actually, shout out to my wife, she actually either did it or got really, really close, but I was terrible at it. I got like in the 30s or something. But anyway, season 7, the one where Chandler doesn't like dogs, is number 4. It's great for me. Love it.
Yeah, so that's my number 3. So
go for it.
I will roll right into that one. Chandler doesn't like dogs. A lot of the same things you said, but literally when I was watching this one, I was like, when you start it, you're like, oh yeah, it's the one where Chandler doesn't like the dog escapes and doesn't really escape, and Chandler freaks out. But as I was watching the episode again, I was like, but this has so many classic Joey one-liners.
Yes.
Like so many. And it's just like, if you think like everybody knows the moo point, like that's not a Thanksgiving episode thing. That's a Friends thing. Like everybody knows it's a cow's opinion.
It doesn't matter.
And I think one of my favorite lines in all of Friends comes from this episode, which you didn't mention, and I'm thankful. And Rachel says, how long after a guy and a girl break up do you have to wait before asking him out? And they're all talking and Joey just sits back and he goes, half hour. And I think that's just so funny because like you said, he's just sitting there in the background, just chiming in. There's like nobody asked him. He's just like half hour. Like, and that just 2 words were like the funniest things to me.
And another iconic Joey line is when the box is this pretty, nobody cares what's on the inside.
When the package is this pretty. So good. Like that one, like Joey's probably my second favorite character in the show, and like that one is just a clearly like a Joey episode, and it's just classic Joey all the way in season 7. So good. So yeah, that's my number 3.
Yeah, Ross not liking ice cream because it's too cold. Also iconic.
Oh.
Really, really great.
Yeah.
You don't like ice
It's a
cream?
dog,
It's
it's
too
not ice
cold.
That one made me laugh.
Or the Phoebe part where she's like, "Where are you?" She's like, "How do you know this?"
Yes.
So good.
So good. All right. Okay, so then my number 3.
Yeah.
Okay. My number 3, you mentioned a while back, this was a big swap for us, but my number 3 is season 9, the one with Rachel's other sister. And so I don't love Jill, which is Reese Witherspoon, plays her other sister in season 6. I love a couple of moments when she's on the show, but she's not, to me. I think Christina Applegate is hilarious as Rachel's sister because she's so like pretentious. She's so in your face, like just a terrible person.
Yes.
Her thinking that Phoebe's name is a noise that Phoebe keeps making instead of her actual name is so funny. Some of it is really cheesy, like obvious kind of out there humor, but to me, it's the fight where they actually get in a physical fight, I think is hilarious. I think Ross being on Rachel's side and being offended every time she, too far, Amy, too far, that kind of thing. And then it seals it up. Really underrated for me is Joey's storyline where the episode opens up and he's watching the Thanksgiving parade and the Days of Our Lives float is on there. And Joey's like, oh crap, I forgot I was supposed to go to that. He's like the star of the show. And then of course you mentioned it, the China breaking at the end and, Joey having the red plate, the special plate or whatever. And, I think the main thing I would have to disagree with you on, which is why it comes up higher for me, is I love the storyline of Chandler not thinking that he would be a good dad, but then proving it at the end when he resolves the sisters fighting and then him sitting in the hallway, and then Ross coming up to him and telling him, hey, you would be a great dad and stuff. And I think it's really touching. I think it's really heartfelt. And like I said, I don't mind Christina Applegate being there. So it's again, if you don't love her as a sister, you're probably not going to like this episode. And so that's kind of why it's higher for me. But that's my number 3, the one with the other sister, one with Rachel.
And honestly, I'm not even mad that that's your pick because the episode itself is great. I just really can't stand Amy.
Yeah. You can't hate any of these picks because this show is so good.
Yeah. No, it's a great pick. Like, that's so funny. He's like, I usually write stuff like this on my arm. Yeah. Oh,
this has been like one of the nicest and most pleasant Rankers podcasts ever.
We need to bring on a 4th person who just like hates the show, who's just like adding in comments, trying to start fires throughout the episode.
True.
That would be funny, actually.
We need to introduce that in like a versus episode.
Yes. Okay, I'm really interested to see if we're gonna have the same number 1, but I guess I'll find out. Hear your number 2.
Here, my number 2. Yeah, you will find out. I will say I almost changed my picks mid-episode when it came to some of my top few. I've been swapping back and forth where
mid-recording.
Mid-recording.
Wow.
No, hang on. My phone died and it had my list on it. Which
Josiah, that's a ranker's commandment.
No.
That's written in
I know,
stone.
it's like,
you cannot change it.
But once you said it, I haven't said it.
He's just been trying to copy you now. Okay. Wait a second.
My phone died and it had all my notes on it. So I was just looking up the episodes real quick.
We'll let you slide because you're a guest.
All right. So my number 2 is season 8, the one with the rumor. And most people seem to know this episode as well, purely because Brad Pitt's in it.
Right.
Like it's just like it's Brad Pitt. And when I was making the list, I was like, oh, it's just the one with Brad Pitt. It's not that memorable. But it's so freaking funny. Like the whole thing, like the whole maternity pants, Joey saying like, what, you can't do Thanksgiving without turkey, and Monica being like, well, nobody eats turkey, and then him at the end coming out with the maternity pants and eating that. The I Hate Rachel Club, that whole scene is just so funny when Rachel's like, I've never seen this guy, we went to high school with him, he's kind of giving me a little smolder look over there, and Ross and him are just like, he's just like breaking things in his hand because he's so mad, and just the miscommunication there. The rumor that was started like between both of them, the one where Monica's like, well, Rachel had that rumor about you too, and he's like, you knew about that? And they're all like, that was true. Like, that is so funny. That thing when Phoebe goes up and hugs him, the whole thing. So
yes, that is a really, really good episode. It's a really, really good pick. I'll go ahead and jump to my number 2. Because I may come back to that one, but number 2 has already been mentioned. It is season 6, the one where Ross gets high. And so here's my thing with this episode in season 6. The reason it's so high is because every storyline, and you alluded to a lot of this, but every storyline in this episode is so good. And we, again, you kind of already talked about it and touched on it, but the trifle thing, and then Ross and Joey trying to go to have Thanksgiving with the dancer girls, and then Monica's parents not knowing that her and Chandler are dating, and then not liking Chandler because they thought that he got Ross high in college, but it was actually Ross himself or whatever. And Ross is so good because Ross is bouncing, like he's bouncing in between all of the storylines because they're all kind of involving him in some kind of way. This episode has one of my favorite lines in the entire show, and it's when Joey and Ross go into the room to talk, and they try to make up this plan, and Joey and Ross is like, okay, I'll take Rachel outside and distract her, and then you talk to them in here to let them know what's going on. And then he goes, then me and you can go to sweet potato pie. And Joey goes, dude, they're not objects. And then Ross is like, oh, and Joey's like, no, I'm just kidding, dude. Like, come on, let's go. And it's just like the comedic timing and the writing is so good. And Joey, this is obviously a really inappropriate joke, but when Ross finds out that the pages are stuck together, Joey goes, Chandler, and he yells at Chandler. And so just so many iconic lines, so many things happening in this episode. And then, yeah, you kind of alluded to it, the Ross and Monica's mom standing up at the end and going back between all the storylines. And, you know, Rachel, no, you weren't supposed to put beef in the trifle. It did not taste very good. And then the famous, the iconic "It tastes like feet" line from David Schwimmer, and the timing on that and his tone, really, really good. And then Matt LeBlanc following it up with, you know, I like it.
I like
it. You kind of touched on it already. I'll leave it there. My opinion, David Schwimmer takes the cake for me in that episode. He's the star, in my opinion. Really, really good. Really love that episode. Season 6, the one where Ross gets high. That's my number 2.
Yeah. No, I also love the end of it where Joey's like, they're like, I left mine in the bathroom. No, I ate that.
No, got that.
It's
got
like,
yours.
Oh, and
got
I left mine in
too.
the bedroom. It's got yours too. They're all looking at him like it's crazy.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, so the downside to doing a list where you know all the episodes is you know the ends. Nick, what's my number 1?
Have we arrived?
We have.
Josiah, I think your number 1 is a Friends Thanksgiving episode.
It is. Would you imagine that?
Nice.
Yeah, so my number 1 Thanksgiving episode is season 4, the one with Chandler in a box. And
wow.
I know. And I like when you said that at number 9. No. But this was my number 1 the whole time.
Oh, nice.
This is actually when you said number 9, it made me start second guessing myself. Because I was like, should I have changed it? Because this one, like my 1, 2, and 3, like I flip-flopped a lot between. Okay. So, and what happened was when I started making the list, I went through season 1, and then it was just like, all right, 1 is clearly better than 2. 3 is clearly better than 1 and 2. 4, I liked better than those first 3. And then as it kept going on, I was like, is this episode better than season 4? Sure. And I really struggled to do that. And I think Matthew Perry is just so funny in this episode. And so a lot of the reasons that you hated it or didn't like it, I kind of agree with. And it's just because like you don't like Chandler and Joey fighting.
Sure.
But I think that Chandler and Joey are the best relationship in Friends. To me,
I can't argue with that.
That is the best relationship with Friends. And to like this whole episode is the resolution to that like multi-episode argument to me. So yes, it is still them fighting, but this is the end of those few episodes and all these issues that Joey hasn't been knowing about and Chandler's been struggling with for weeks, like dealing with. And then you get to this, and then her just being like, all right, I can see this between you. I'm just gonna leave. And he's just poking the finger out of the box, that's see it tough. Like that's just like really hard. And then like Joey realizing in that moment, like, oh look, he's human, I'm human too. And I can't lose my best friend over this. But like that box is just so funny. And he's just like, and like the whole part where Joey's like, you know what I was doing in that box where they were all robbing us? I was thinking about how I'd let you down. And Chandler goes, if I could sit in a box for 6 hours, I would do that for you. And Joey just looks over like,
we got a box.
You got a box.
Yeah, another iconic line too is when they're sitting on the couch watching the football game and they all start cheering and Chandler's like, what happened? What happened? Joe goes, you kissed my girlfriend. Really good timing, really good things going
Yeah.
on. And I agree. You've made me
Yes.
almost come around a little bit more to it
Yeah.
because the stuff and the redemption of their relationship is really good. It's the other stuff for me, I think, that
Oh yeah.
puts me
No,
out
like,
of it.
and I don't hate it like being that low, but when you had it that low, I started second guessing it. But like for me, this is one where just their relationships throughout is just so funny. Also, like this, like we talk about this whole thing being Chandler and Joey, but this is also the one where they find out that Rachel just returns everything when they're doing Secret Santa, and she's
Yeah,
like
that's
trying
savage.
not to admit it, and they're finding out that you can't get her a gift, and so nobody ever wants to get her gifts, and she just comes out with like the necklace, and she can't find anything.
Which is a bit that they continue throughout the show.
Yes,
really good.
So funny, but
really good reasoning. Don't hate that pick. Love it.
Yeah.
Wow. Even with a lot of discrepancy and totally differences from 1 versus 9, y'all still are happy together. This must be a Friends episode.
It's what this show does.
Yeah.
It brings people
really
together,
does.
man.
So.
All right, drum roll, please. Let's go.
Yeah. So if you've been, paying attention, you'll obviously know my number 1 was Josiah's number 2.
Yep.
And it is season 8, the one with the rumor. And I will say off the top, it part of this is biased because Brad Pitt is like one of my favorite actors of all time. And so seeing him in the show, it always, but take Thanksgiving, like this list out of what we're talking about, like this episode would be in my top 2 or 3, probably ranking among all the episodes. Love this episode so much. I think it is so funny. I think, and plus, if you know the meta factor of it, if you understand that Brad Pitt and Jennifer Aniston were married at this time and their storyline is that they hate each other, to me, that just makes it funnier.
Yep.
And Brad Pitt is honestly, if you watch it, not the best acting I've ever seen him do. Like, he's clearly just there to have fun, but him coming in and Phoebe seeing him and stuff, and then looking up to heaven and telling God that he did a good job for making him and stuff. It's so good. And biggest, if you go back and listen, it may be the biggest cheer from the audience when he walks in. It's a really, really big cheer when they first see him. And like you alluded to, the I Hate Rachel Club is so funny. The rumor about Ross making out with the librarian and, Monica going, didn't she walk with a cane? Only when it was damp. Stuff like that is really, really good. And that's another episode too, where David Schwimmer is really on point with a lot of his acting and him bouncing off. Like, for some reason, him and Brad Pitt like have really good chemistry in that episode. Like, they're funny together. And Joey and Phoebe are kind of, Joey, Phoebe, and Chandler are kind of doing what they do best, which is just adding in comedy. They don't really have a storyline too much embedded, and they're just throwing in the comedy, in with the show and stuff. And it is just such a good episode. Like I said, Brad Pitt's my favorite Friends guest star. This is one of my favorite episodes of the whole entire show. And so when we were making this list, I knew that I look forward to season 8 because of this episode. Like, I love getting to season 8 because I know this episode is coming. It's so good, so iconic. The Joey's these are my Thanksgiving pants. And, why are you eating those bag of chips? You got a whole turkey to eat. And his timing of, let me explain to you how the human body works. Just like so many things. And shout out to my brother, who I shout out all the time, Matthew, but we quote this line all the time when she puts the turkey down on the table and he's like, how big is that? And she's like, about 19 pounds. And he turns to Monica, he turns to Phoebe and he goes, that's like me when I was born. Like a 19-pound infant. That's like insane. But it's Joey and it's so funny. So I'll leave it there. I could keep going on it, but the rumor's my number 1 easily.
You were the hermaphrodite cheerleader from Long Island? Everybody knew that.
That's it, peeps.
Yeah.
That's it. That's the list. Happy Thanksgiving, everybody.
Happy Thanksgiving. Yes, indeed. Yeah, that was awesome. And I love the fact that, we do podcasts like this that go with the seasons. But yeah, That was amazing, guys. I learned a lot about Friends. I don't know if you guys have any final remarks or if you want to rattle off again what you had in order. Josiah, I don't know if you're able to do that because you were picking randomly.
Picking I wasn't
Like,
picking randomly.
No, I was not.
No, I wasn't. My phone died though. So, man, if I could do it off the top of my head, that would be pretty insane. But it'd probably take me like.
We won't make
you don't have to do that. You don't have to do that. Anyways,
the people listen. They know.
Yeah.
They know.
I know.
Yeah. Anything else that you guys want to say?
I will say I think it's hilarious. Nick, you alluded to this already, but that we had mostly the same list, more or less, with a few wildly different discrepancies, and we didn't care that we were so different on that. Like I came into this like almost like if somebody thinks that my picks are wrong, I'll fight them type of deal, like I was with the pizza one. But then I realized I was like, no, I like all of these episodes. Like I know in a lot of your lists, you get to a point where you're like, I like these, or like I love these picks more than the lower half. And on this one, I was like, no, like I like 10 through 1, like for sure.
That's awesome. Well, it sounds like we picked a good episode to do, and we picked an awesome person to do it. Josiah, thank you for being with us yet again on the Rinkers podcast. And thank you for being such a faithful listener, man. Shout out to you for doing that. Jacob,
we appreciate you.
Jacob, do you want to go ahead and let the Ranker fam know what we are going to be ranking next?
Yeah. So guys, we're really excited. We're going to be continuing the Thanksgiving theme. And I remember last year we were actually going to do this list around Thanksgiving last year, but if you guys remember our first year starting this podcast, when it got into the holiday season, things got crazy busy for both of us, and
took a short break.
We weren't able to do. We had to take a break.
Like you got married or something.
We are bringing it back, and this list has to be done during this month. We're going to be ranking our top 10 Thanksgiving foods, and so
heck yeah,
it's just. This is what Thanksgiving is all about. Being thankful. Yeah, I get it. Eating. That's why we're here.
Absolutely.
That's what it's about.
That's what Thanksgiving's all about. Just eating.
Yeah. And so we love doing the food pod. So make sure to join us next time for that Ranker fam. But for now, this has been the Rankers podcast. Thanks for hanging with us.
Deuces.